All right, folks. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's Wednesday, the 17th of February, and this is a part of our community conversations. All right, folks. Thanks. Different devices going on right now. Excuse me. This series has been sponsored by the NAACP Pasadena branch, Indalon, the Community Clergy Coalition, as well as CCOP. And I'll introduce myself to some of you and the others I know. My name is James Farr, and I've been moderating these discussions as we've kind of moved around to different parks, different park areas. We've invited community stakeholders to participate in this conversation. I'd like to let you know that joining us on these conversations are members of the Pasadena Police Department. We've asked them to listen so that they can learn more about what exactly the community is saying, how they're feeling. Um, and so they won't be able to respond, but you're more than welcome to, share what your truths are, what your stories are, what your questions are. We have a panel today consisting of Brandon Lamar and Esprit, and we'll talk with them a little bit, and then we'll open up our dialogue today for you. So if you'd like to come on camera and ask a question, that's fine. Just indicate that in the chat or raise your hand. Once we get to that portion, Lisa will be facilitating that part, and she'll bring you in on camera. Um, these conversations are likely to be spirited. They're likely to be high charged. Um, we just ask that while we don't have to all agree, but you respect other people's positions, and we invite you guys all to share. And then I just want to send a hello to and thank you to Flo, who has organized this. Flo, did you want to come on and say something before we get started?
Sorry, no, you good. Let's start.
Okay. Okay. So I want to welcome our first two panelists here into this conversation. We have Brandon Lamar as well as Esprit. So I'm going to start out with you, Brandon. And as we know tonight, we're centralizing the conversation around the La Pintoresca Park and that particular community. There's some things that are kind of overlapping between communities, but I want to start with you, Brandon, and kind of for context for those that may not know, what was La Pintoresca to you, like as a young person in the community, and kind of where is it right now?
All right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. As stated, my name is Brandon Lamar. I'm a lifelong Pasadenian, as you would call it. Born and raised here all of my life. Actually been a part of probably every youth program, either been a part of it or worked it that you can think about that has to do with the city of Pasadena. So been invested here for a minute. When it comes to La Pintoresca Park, if you know Northwest Pasadena, Jackie Robinson and La Pintoresca Park was like the live parks that you can go to. And so with La Pintoresca having the basketball courts and the skateboard park, and then a couple of years later, they added a water station where kids can cool down during the summer. But when I was going to La Pintoresca Park, it was actually before they actually built the teen center. And it was a lot of intertwined between La Pintoresca Park and La Pintoresca Library. You didn't go to the park without going to the library. I mean, everybody who went to the park went to the library. And then you can't mention La Pintoresca Park either without mentioning Alkebalon Culture Center, because Alkebalon Culture Center was right in the middle of it as well, right next door. And so there was a lot of things that was intertwined. Alkebalon Culture Center had after school programs. They had summer programs for the young people. They had a male chorus choir, which was before my time. But there's a whole lot of things that, La Pintoresca
like the kid. as a young person, what connected you to all of those things? Because I'm constantly hearing that there's a gap maybe in the teen center or even El Capitan and even the library where, young people are kind of slipping through the cracks. So what was the connector? Why was that important for you
I
when you
mean,
were young and coming up?
let's be honest. When I was young, and it wasn't long ago because I'm a '90s kid, and so when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet, we didn't have Wi-Fi, and so we spent a lot of our times outside. We played basketball outside, football outside, tag outside. We played football in the middle of the street, and sometimes it was tackle in the middle of the street. And so nowadays, we barely even see kids actually playing outside. Period. Um, because they're so into their games and stuff. But when I was growing up as a kid, there was a lot of interaction with park and recreation. There was a lot of interaction with the police department. For an example, police actually stopping and saying, "How you doing? Playing football with us, playing basketball with us." I remember a guy named Officer Saunders. He's probably still with the police department as well, but he would literally spend time with us, talking to us. Rodney Wallace, of course, everybody knows him, and the list goes on and on and on. And so we were available in the community. We were a part of it. The activities that was happening at the park, they was there. I used to be a part of the Pasadena Youth Council, and before there was a teen center, we were the ones who was coming up with the activities and with the ambassadors coming up with the activities for the teen center. And so there's a lot of history with La Pintoresca Park when it comes to the city, when it comes to the parks, when it comes to family. And so, even
So
it's still this. Go ahead, James.
You said, I mean, because I want to go back to something you just said, like there was a different interaction or contact with like the police,
Right.
and how they interacted with kids in the park. Why and how did that make a difference between the relationship between kids then, versus what we're seeing now?
I mean, let's be honest, the culture of policing has changed, right? We hear a lot of officers now saying that we can't do this and we can't do that because we're afraid or we're scared for our lives, right? When I was a kid, officers wasn't, I mean, I'm not going to say that they were scared for their lives because I didn't hear it come out their mouths, but officers were not only approachable, but they approached you as well. And so you have people like I said, Officer Sanders, Officer Rodney. You have people like Daryl Qualls that wasn't afraid to approach the people. But let's even cross lines with Altadena. Let's go to the sheriff's department with Deputy Sheriff Eric Estrada, who's not afraid to approach people. And I think that's the difference, is that now instead of approaching people because they fit a description, or instead of approaching somebody because you got a call about something that just happened and they look like they did it, or whatever the case may be, they were approaching to connect with you. They were approaching to throw the basketball with you. They was approaching to know your name. They was approaching you to build community and to build trust. And so I think that's the difference between now and then. Even some stuff that's been happening recently, and me and a couple of other people who have been at the park, it's a different culture. You have officers
I
who
mean,
wave at you.
how so?
Absolutely. So you have officers who wave at you because they know you because of who I am in the community. But then in other instances, I sit back and look at them, and officers don't speak to half of the people that are up there. They won't walk up to them. They don't say how they're doing, especially after Anthony McLean's death, which is very touching for everybody. We spent 2 weeks up there from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. And it was a lot of officers sitting up there and watching and looking around. And here's the thing, and here's what I respect. One officer stopped and said, "Hey, we're here to protect you guys, just looking out for you guys." And the community was like, "Well, if you're here to protect us, come out here with us." It didn't happen. And so that's the thing that we have to really start recognizing, is that if you're going to connect with the community, if you're going to be a part of the community, if you're going to work in the community, then you have to find ways to connect with the community. You have to find ways to bridge the gap.
Okay. Well, definitely. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about events around the park. I want to welcome Esprit in. Esprit, how you doing?
I'm well, Brother James. How are you?
Good. Again, thank you for making yourself available.
Absolutely.
You have a very powerful voice. Um, you spoke well in documentary Thorns on the Rose. So I look
Thank you.
forward to
Thank you
sharing
for
that
that.
with folks. So, I mean, you live in the area. I mean, like right across the street from the park.
Literally right across the street.
Mhm.
Um, I
What
just
what
want to,
made you decide to live across the street from the park?
it was kind of a lack of options at the moment. I needed to move and I did what I could do. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can afford what you can afford. The city is quite pricey.
Mhm.
As Nicole discussed last week about, some of the new things, just, the demographic of the city is shifting.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like I just gotta live here. No, I don't know. I've lived in Pasadena and Altadena for most of my life, minus maybe like 3 years.
Mhm.
But I've never lived in Northwest um, until the last 3.5 years or so.
So what's your experience living in close proximity to the park? Because if we read one report, it says it's out of control. Then another side says this is just members of the community. These are people who live here. What's your experience?
So it's got some interesting days. There's nights that it's typically weekends or in the summer where there might be noise a little later than people would care for. I know I'm a member of our block association, so I have neighbors that have to be up at 4 a.m. For work, and so noise till midnight isn't necessarily conducive to having a functional day the next day. By the same token, you've got PPD flying helicopters around at 11:30 every night on the dot, as if somebody's committing a crime at 11:30 every night. So either way, disruptive. But nonetheless, it's a solid community. In the homicide of Anthony McLean, I was able to connect with some community members and bridge some of the gaps between the pastors who were available to the community at that time and the members of, residents and other people who, kind of hang out here. And what's across the board, um, a factor for everybody is not feeling respected. We're not um,
How
amongst each
so?
other.
I mean, what do you mean? Who do you not feel by?
it's a it's a multi-level thing. Like there's a lack of regard from law enforcement and from the city, it seems. Brandon discussed some of the things that my brothers were all in Alkebula and boys choir. I got 6 brothers, all of them sang. So when you have what's shifted to now, the lack of things for kids to do, if you don't play football, you're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like if there's only certain things you can do and you have to be at certain places to do it. I don't think that the same programs are available that were before. Um, Last week there was discussion about over policing in Northwest. It's the fact that we're literally being policed and not served or protected necessarily. So even in that, it's just, it's like Brendan was saying, it's the officers, in my point of view, don't have ties to our community. Rodney Wallace said, he mentioned earlier, Rodney Diaz from Pasadena, he went to John Muir. You can't, like he goes to First AME, like he's been in my life my entire life. So when you have officers like that who are invested in the community and what's best for the community, it matters differently. We don't have officers that know us and know our families. We don't go to the same churches. And as I'm hearing, a lot of them don't even live, even 2 cities over. Like you're talking about people that drive an hour to come to work to, do
I
their
want to
work
ask
in an
you.
area that they don't understand.
I want to ask you a question, Spree, because and with that in mind, if there were better relationship, you were there when Anthony was shot, correct?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
you literally were on scene. Okay.
Yes.
Events after that, what was your experience and how did that impact you?
Hmm. The immediate, like that night, or the
That night
spanning few weeks?
and I mean, if you I don't want to conflate them all into
No,
one
no, no, no,
experience.
no, no. Immediately, um, there weren't as many people as, let's say, were um, at the park the night before. So it was a lesser crowd, but nonetheless, there were people present. Um, my neighbors and I, we all have children. This officer shot Anthony from the park side towards the residential side of the street. So this could have went in anybody's walls, doors, windows, anything. So I felt in that moment disregarded and terrified. And then to witness the response of the people who were here, 10 or 15 people that were in the vicinity to directly witness it or even be confused about what was happening until Anthony was on the ground over here. Um, it was really heartbreaking to watch people just all of us really having to witness it. There wasn't anyone who showed any regard when officers promptly blocked off both sides of the street up at Grandview and down at Washington. There were an immediate, I don't know, 7 to 12 police cars on our block. And, a lot of time between the time of the gunshots to when the paramedics arrived, it had to be at least 10 to 15 minutes just to sit in that anguish and terror. My daughter, being 7 years old, is concerned with police presence. When I was her age, I didn't feel like police were to be afraid of. They were believed to be something you should aspire to be, to help people, to protect people and things of that sort. And then here's my child feeling like if the police are here, somebody's going to die. The trauma in and of that, and then, I stood outside until the yellow tape was removed, until the people in the park weren't in the park anymore. It was 1 a.m. So you've got people who were stuck in the middle of a crime scene, terrorized. Someone was tased, someone a child pepper spray, like all of that happened. And my neighbors and I stood outside and continued to watch. There was no regard for the people who just lost their friend. There was no regard for the people that live here. And for them to stand here and demonize the victim and the witnesses, for people to be just blatantly disregarded and treated less than animals, was ridiculous. And I lost a whole lot of respect for law enforcement in our city in that moment.
What was needed? What do you think was needed at that time?
Compassion. Bottom
And if the
line.
relationship was better, do you think if there was that familiarity that we were talking about earlier, do you think that, I don't know, I can't say it would change the events, but do you think it would have changed what you and your neighbors experienced?
Even if not that night, it was a continued disregard. There weren't resources available to the witnesses whether they live here or not. There wasn't anyone that reached out to, people. Black Lives Matters and pastors showed up the next morning. That was beautiful. My mother's pastor was out of town. Her husband was here. And the first thing I stated was, there were like 6 pastors when I looked out my window at 9 this morning, just walking up to people in the park that were sitting here and asking if they could pray with them. Like, that was powerful. The city didn't do that. PPD didn't do that. To date, there hasn't been an apology or an expression of any type of condolence or concern. And
Well, I mean, there was the memorial in the way of the tree.
Yeah, that's so there's that. But before that happened, there was a removal of the memorial 2 days in a row that, city workers were forced, because they're union, to come remove it. I've got a childhood friend that was a part of the team of people that was forced to remove it. And those people are people that are part of this same community. These are people that have ties. Like, they they grew up here too. So you're forcing them to step on this sacred space, this space that the community has to honor and reflect on someone that was taken from us. I didn't know Anthony. Let me say that for the record. I didn't know him. Not related to him. He's not my friend. He's not anyone that I met before. When I walked out the next day and looked into his eyes in a picture on a tree, I said, this is not somebody that was supposed to die that way. There's a light in his eyes. I don't care. Like, you know what I've learned living here? I've learned that gangbanging and association is circumstantial and for survival. People are going to do what they have to do to make it. Nobody wakes up as a kid who goes, I want to grow up and do this. No. You're looking at a lack of a lot of things here that lead to a lifestyle choice.
Brandon, I want to bring you back and just hold tight, Esprit. Brandon, I want to bring you back. When the issue of self-accountability and community responsibility, the tribal things that are happening in community. I mean, is it a gang problem? Is it a lack of gang intervention? Like, where is all of this coming from?
Here's the thing. I don't think it's a gang problem, and I don't think it's a gang intervention problem. I think we have a lack of resource problem. And that's what it is. You hear me say it time after time again. All the youth programs that I've been a part of, you had to have had a certain GPA to be in these youth programs. So what about the kids who don't follow under that certain GPA? What do you have for them? Right. And so it's a lack of resources. It's a lack. I mean, when Anthony McLean passed away, there was nobody coming up there saying, hey, we have therapists, we have counselors to come talk to you. What I did was I run a program in LA County, and I brought some of my therapists that works under me to come to the park. And if anybody needed, we talked to Jasmine, we talked to other people. If they needed therapy or a counselor or somebody to talk to, that's who they did. And, I did that on my own resources, but it wasn't available to the community. So there is a lack of what we say resources. Now, let me say this, because let's be honest, there are a host of youth programs that we have in the city of Pasadena that are great programs, but none of our kids are going to these programs. So we have all these programs that are great programs that our kids are not attending, because maybe they don't want to attend, maybe it doesn't meet their needs. And so let's really go back to the root of it, is that we have to start hiring people who knows how to connect with our people, with our community, with our people that are in our parks, with people that are in our recreation centers, because everybody is not kid friendly. Let me say that again. everyone is not kid friendly. And so it's not just about the programs that we put in there, but it's also about the people that we hire to run these programs too. And so we have to literally start dealing in the root cause of all these of everything that we're looking at. I don't believe that the gang is the main issue. The lack of resources that our community has is what we should focus on. And so yes, we have gang issues. Yes, we have a drug issues. Yes, we have crime issues, but you know, never is it discussed that District 1 has the lowest crime rate in all of Pasadena. And so never is it discussed that District 1 is probably one of the safest districts that you can live in Pasadena. And so, or Northwest Pasadena is one of the safest places that you can live in Pasadena. And so those things are not discussed. And so, yeah, that's where my mind is right now. It's
Let
really
me ask you a
has to do with
question.
resources.
The city's response to the recent shootings, you know, some police have said they believe is gang related, others they're unsure of. I want to also make sure that we, you know, hold space for the 10-year-old boy, Mario Ramirez, who was shot on this past Sunday over on Park Street. But the city's response to some sort of intervention and on, kind of on the ground. What's your take on that? Is it reactionary? Is more needed?
I mean, it is.
All right, guys, we'll talk later.
You're not muted.
Okay, folks, just please make sure you mute yourselves.
So it is absolutely reactionary. And it sucks because we always want to react after a situation happens, or after a shooting happens, or after somebody has died. And so we always want to react after these things happen instead of focusing on prevention. And I think we focus more on intervention than we do on prevention. And so here's the big gap that we have in Pasadena. Yes, you have things for people from the ages of as they are a kid all the way to their 18. But have we talked about the ages of 18 to 25, or the ages of those kids who don't want to go to college, or for those kids who are coming out of college? Have we talked about programming for them? Have we talked about literacy program, how to write a resume, how to apply for school, how to do these things? And so we all talk about, we're talking about La Pintoresca right now. Before the pandemic hit, La Pintoresca was open, or the teen center was open when kids were actually starting to get out of school. And so my whole idea is this: if we have a whole building sitting right there, why not provide services to that 18 to 30-year-old group that we can help them write their resumes, write cover letters, how to apply for a job, how to look when you're applying for a job? How about we get resources of jobs that can hire felons, that are actually hiring felons, to come to the teen center, and that be a local place for us to have something at? But it's not happening right now, you know? It's so easy for things to happen. And I only said teen center because we're talking about La Pintoresca Park. And so there's so much things that we can do that we're not doing because it's not for us to do. Basically, it's just, it'll happen when we get there. But I'm gonna say this: how many people has to keep dying before we wake up? How many times how many people have to lose jobs, or how many people have to cry out for jobs, or how many people have to sell drugs? Let me say this too: a lot of people that are out there robbing homes, and let me say this, I'm not condoning it at all, but a lot of people out there robbing homes and selling drugs and doing stuff like that, a lot of them are not doing it because they want to do it. Some of them are doing because they have to do ends meet. They have to get ends meet. And so there's no jobs for felons, or it's not presented to them, or where they can find it. And so how about we help them get to that place instead of always talking about the problems, like they keep doing this and they keep doing that? How about we help them get the resources that they need so that they can become successful individuals?
Spree, you know, again, thank you, sister, for being here. And, you know, we're gonna get ready to open it up to comments and questions that I'm not sure if we were able to retain the last session of chat questions and not flow, but you can.
Yeah, we have it all, but we actually, if it's okay, our council member Tyrone Hampton is on, and I think it might be a pause to let him speak.
Absolutely.
If he wants to, let me say that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
If he wants to.
I will just say that I'm here because it's important for me as a council member to listen to everybody's views, everybody's opinion, and collectively work on your behalf as your city council member and representing those views and values. So I believe that this has been a great discussion. I was on the first part of the discussion, and I'm glad that we were able to pick that back up. And thank you to everyone who came together very quickly to figure out how to fix the last situation that we were just in. So that's amazing. And thank you, David, for the breath. Every once in a while, I think we all need to stop everything that we're doing and actually take a breath and reflect and be present in the situation in every possibility way we could possibly be present. And so I appreciated Brandon's comments, and I don't want to blame things on COVID because I think that that's a horrible place to blame or put blame on. But you're right. I mean, the community has a lot. We have a lot of work to do, and I always talk about how safe our district is, and it wasn't always that way. And so maybe that's the reason why some people feel like, oh, well, the city doesn't mention this, but I mention it all the time. I talk about, for the past 4 years, we are one of the safest districts to live in. And that's something that, I'm listening and coming to these meetings and talking to people regularly at the market, you name it. I'm never not a city council member, it seems like. Right. I mean, there's literally I could go to the park with my daughter and someone's telling me about a pothole and that's part of the job. Right. I mean, so when we have these positions, the role is always there, even though it's not a full-time position for me and my colleagues, but it is I consider my full-time job my part-time job, and this is my full-time job. So these meetings start at 5 a.m. and I have meetings and talk to people and sometimes until 9 o'clock at night, but it's important that we all are listening. And I've mentioned this before. I'll just say, people think of the city council as, our leaders and our leaders basically. And it's important that you check those people that are representing us and call them your representatives, because at the end of the day, that's what they are. They're not your leaders. We are supposed to be listening to you, and we're supposed to come up with plans that work to get your values across, even if it's sometimes against what we personally think, right? So with that being said, I want to thank Brandon for the mentions of the things that could be happening at La Pintoresca. And once again, like I said, I don't want to blame anything on COVID, but right before COVID, we had 3 workshops at La Pintoresca, and people were getting hired. One, Boston Brick actually hired some people. We had a job fair there, and we actually had 3 job fairs, and something that the Foothill Workforce Development Board is committed to doing once a month. But of course, COVID happened, and the health department asked us to discontinue that service. So I know that once we are able to get back to a meeting place, we are bringing those programs and those things to our communities, because I hear that. I definitely hear that. I hear from people that say, I'm trying to buy a house in Pasadena, but Heritage Housing Partners is not presenting these type of programs within our community. I hear that, and we make sure that those are within our district and walking distance from people that are looking for those opportunities. So I do want to say that the opportunities are there. We're posting them. I put them on my social media. I hope that everybody else is putting those things out as well. As far as, job fairs and opportunities, as well as resume writing, that was a course that was actually offered at La Pintoresca Library. That will be coming back as soon as we can get back to a place where we can meet in person with a mask on or without a mask. So I just want to mention that, and I just want you guys to know that I'm here to listen. I'm writing notes, as a matter of fact, right now, and and we could always be better, right? Every day, my motto and my goal is I can be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. And so I think that that's, as a community of collective people and collective minds and even some differences, we could always be better the next day. So I just want you to know that I am here. I'm always here. I'm always available for anyone that's here on this line, on this platform. This is not the only time you could talk to me. You could talk to me at any time. My number's super easy to remember, and I'm just going to let everybody know it. It's 626-744-4444. Can't remember that, then maybe we should be talking. Like, not just playing. Not just playing. But it's 626-744-4444. God bless everybody. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say anything. But like I said, I just wanted to listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Hampton, and we appreciate your representation and also your leadership, and always having an ear and listening and advocating for people in your constituents and in Pasadena as a whole. So thank you for being here tonight. So Flo, what I think we should do, because we lost some time with the hacker situation. So I want to go into the question portion so we can bring in those questions and comments. And then we'll just kind of go from there. So Lisa, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have the previous chat, but Flo could jump in a little bit. I did want to kind of
let's hold up before we do that then, Lisa. Because I don't want to miss what was in the last section and just jump to here. So Flo, do you have, because I can't see him. So
I have to, because he's on another account. So this is not this. I had to jump to another account to start this.
I do see one from Robert. He reposted his question, so I can start with that one.
Okay.
This is from Robert Grant. What does your panel think about a community surveillance cameras being placed in parks with a command post manned with citizens and law enforcement?
Okay. Any
So that could be Brandon or Spree.
So you want cameras and a command post? Got you. Yeah, no. And look, y'all, if y'all know me and you know Robert, we got a brotherhood going on, so we answer each other very bluntly. And so no. And I say that. I say that.
Mute, please.
That's me. This is because that's what I get for getting a MacBook computer. But I say no. I don't believe that a command post would be helpful in our parks. And here's why I say that. I don't believe that it would be helpful because there is a lot of trauma that has happened between community and police officers. And I think first, before we actually try to do something like that, we have to heal what has been broken first. And so we have to find ways to heal. We have to find ways to mend broken pieces with the community. And I don't think at this moment a command post will do it. They tried it actually. They tried it during COVID at La Pintoresca Park, but I don't think it worked. And I think it made people more, not even out of think. I know it made people more upset and mad. There are some parks who, like Jackie Robinson, they do have cameras, but they're not cameras in the parks. They're actually cameras that's facing the building. And so I'm not opposed to that because that's security for the building, but I don't think that there should be cameras in the park. That's just my opinion.
Spree, you have a thought on that?
I gotta say I agree with Brandon, there's too much to repair there. Like we're in a really like broken space, especially for those of us who grew up here and knew that there was a different type of policing. I'm sure that I have neighbors that would feel safer with something like that. But at the same time, I don't think it affords us the actual, I don't think it affords anyone the dignity of doing the right thing. There's tons of people that hang out here that do the right thing all day, but they're demonized because they live here or hang out here, whatever the case may be. Yeah, no, I don't, I agree all the way.
Okay. Well, I mean, we have cameras. You know, police have cameras. They have body worn cameras. They have cameras on their dashboards.
Yeah, if they're on.
And so I think whether the solution is additional policing or not, you know, that's something that collectively as a community has to decide. I think ultimately what the community wants is public safety across the board. And when those cameras do capture something, or the community does believe something is egregious or perhaps out of policy, that there's accountability. Doesn't matter if there's 1,000 officers deployed, if there's no accountability when there's something not, you know, proper, then I don't think we've really gained anything but being surveilled rather. Okay, let's go with the next question.
Yes, this is actually something that was talked about earlier. This was from Myra, Pastor Myra. This for Esprit. How do you talk to your daughter about what happened to Anthony and about police overall? And what do you think Black and Brown parents are facing in parenting children living in this community with the state of policing as it currently is?
It's really difficult to have those conversations. Again, I mentioned, you know, Rodney Wallace has been in my life my entire life, and he's not someone that I felt unsafe with ever. And he's not the only police officer I've known in my life. There are others, and they're from, you know, local people and with strong community ties. And so I had a different perspective at her age. Her perspective didn't shift until Anthony was shot. And we have open dialogue, me and my little kid. This happened, you know, on the heels of what happened to Breonna Taylor, what happened to George Floyd. There's countless names from George Floyd to Anthony McClain. Like there's numbers of people in LA County, and I talk to her with regret that she doesn't get to know the same level of security that I knew as a child. And as an adult with full understanding of what's happening in these various situations, like the list is not getting any shorter of people that are brutalized or murdered by police officers. I truly speak to her with regret that she doesn't see it the same way I got to see it, and that she's tainted as a child. What needs to change, it goes back to building those relationships locally. It goes back to, I've heard, you know, my mom said, officers don't walk the beat. And one of my neighbors said, officers don't walk the beat. They're not here. They're not here. If I could use another example really quick, there was another shooting about a month after Anthony was killed. And it was not an officer involved shooting. But upon arrival of the police, there was only one officer of the officers that arrived who took time to have dialogue with me and a couple other people that were outside. There was one officer who, in spending the time to connect with us, another officer disrupted him and pulled him away for him to go, you know, like he was in trouble for talking to community members and being transparent with us as possible. Like, there's no transparency. Like, someone asked me on Facebook on a post of someone brought Valentine flowers for Anthony McLean. And I posted a picture. Someone asked, you know, where's the investigation? Like, we don't know anything. And even with that, like, does PPD do not understand that transparency in these matters to us? Like, how do you build relationships without that? So what needs to happen is the relationships. How do we go about getting it? Like, you know, I'm sure that, you know, the groups of people that have, you know, joined these meetings in these last few weeks could definitely come up with solid ways for those relationships to be built. But this is a two-way street.
Bree, how did,
Overall.
when you experience what you perceive as like the officer being pulled away, how did that make you feel? Like, what were you thinking?
I don't know if anyone's ever had anyone in their neighborhood who everybody didn't, you know, somebody thought was weird. Maybe they were new, they just didn't know anybody, and we made our, you know, prejudgments about people, and you don't want your kid to play with them or something like that. It was like a mom telling him, you can't play with them. And he had to go sit down. I felt, again, like that's dehumanizing. Like, I'm a person, and the people that were standing with me were just people. There was someone's car that was left over there, and he was inquiring about, you know, how long it was going to be because someone left with his keys. So his car was the only car in the middle of this crime scene. And this officer came over and explained, you know, there's a lot of shell casings. There's, you know, we're just trying to sort through the evidence. It's going to be a while, but he was like keeping us in the loop in what was happening there. And for him to be pulled away at this moment of connection, I felt was like saying, you can't play with them.
Okay. Well, all right, Lisa, let's get, you know, some more of the questions and comments in.
Yeah, we've got some good ones coming in here. You can kind of merge these two. Let's see, how about regular foot beats in all parks? And then another one is, how might we build renewed accountable relationships with law enforcement in our communities? So Brandon, what are your thoughts on that?
I think first things first is that it has to be wanted. It renewed accountability and rebuilding community has to be wanted by both ends. Let's say that it has to be open by both ends. And so here's some of the things, because I believe we can talk about the problems all day long, but until we start bringing solutions, then we really don't need to say nothing. I think some of the solutions that we have to have is we have to start having conversations with officers who actually patrol our communities, and having those conversations with people who live in that community. For an example, we had some conversations at La Pintoresca Park that James hosted, that we all was there. And those not La Pintoresca Park, Alkebalon Culture Center. And those conversations were bridging the gap between community and police officers. For some reason, we stopped it. Another thing that bridges the gap between community and police is some ideas that I have is, how about we start getting some of these basketball players from our high schools and putting them in basketball games against our police officers who are not behind badges, who don't have whatever they have on them, but it's a friendly game. I think what we have to start doing is we have to start going back to communication. Communication is really the key when it comes to rebuilding. It was an old African proverb that says, when you actually talk, you have solved half of the problem. And so communication is solving half of the problem. And so whether you playing dominoes or you playing spades or you playing hopscotch or you playing basketball, those situations, they start conversations. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to start starting the conversations, but not only start the conversations, we have to finish these conversations as well. Because a lot of things that happen is we start the conversations, but then they stop and there's no more to it. And so I really think that that's what it has to get done. The way I built the relationships that I have with the police officers that I have is because they talk to me and I talk to them. And it wasn't the high ups. It wasn't the chiefs and the deputy chiefs and the lieutenants and the sergeants. It was those people who was driving past my house. It was those people who got up their car to play basketball with me, to play football with me. And so I think that's how we build community. That's how we build relationships between the community and the police, is that we have to start these conversations, and you cannot be scared to go up to these people, to go up to your community where you work at and have conversations with them.
You know, Brandon, I think I hear you saying, and I think we should differentiate community versus neighborhood, right?
Right.
Neighborhoods make up community, but even within a neighborhood, there's a community, right? And so you're saying officers need to know the block,
Absolutely.
need
I
to know the
mean,
neighborhood.
you have to know where you work at. So my headquarters and my headquarters to the office where I am is in Compton. I mean, we in the heart of Compton. Every day we hearing gunshots. But guess what? That doesn't stop me from walking my kids to their homes and communicating with. I don't live out there, but I work out there. And so if you're working in Pasadena or you're working around La Pintoresca Park, you have to do what you have to do to get to know the community that you live in. I mean, that you work in. And so just like Spree was saying, it starts with a conversation. I remember one of the nights we were out there, it was about maybe 10 o'clock that we was out there, and an officer was parked at the top corner of Raymond, and Anthony's auntie said, "Hey, I want to go up there and I want to ask them a question." I said, "Okay, well, if you're gonna go up there, ask them a question, we're gonna be respectful, right?" She was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be respectful." So I said, "I'm gonna go with you, so I make sure that you're respectful." And so we walked up there and we had a decent conversation with the police officer. And she said, "I want to know why you're here." He said, "I'm here because I'm here to protect you guys." And she was like, "Well, if you're here to protect us, why you can't even say hi to us? Why can't you say how you guys are doing? I mean, my nephew just got shot down. Why you can't say how you guys are doing, or what's wrong, or what's the problem? How can we help serve? Do you need anything? Why can't you do that?" And so as she began to ask those questions, he actually drove off. I'm standing there. He drove off. She follows the car next to him. There was another car behind him, and she goes to that car, and she was like, "You see what this just happened?" The lieutenant who did that turned around and told that guy to pull off, not to talk to us. This is not something that I heard. This is something that I've seen with my own eyes. And so this is community. This is neighborhood. This is our community, that you have to talk to the people that you're working with. And if you don't have compassion, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you're not passionate about the people that you're serving, then you don't need to be working in this neighborhood. If you're scared, you don't need to be working in this neighborhood.
Okay. Lisa, we have some more comments. I see more questions that are coming in.
Yes.
Again, folks, it's about 8:15. We schedule this till 8:30, and we want to make sure that we honor those questions. And we apologize that we lost what we lost in the last session. But go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, Spree, this is for you. And of course, Randy, you can add to it if you'd like. What signal does it send to the community to have the police officer who killed Anthony still on the force, and to have the city prosecute community members who were there that day? And there's a second part to that. And should the new community police oversight board have the power to fire officers and control their budget like the school board has over PUSD?
It is the ultimate slap in the face to the community to have officers who have been involved in homicides of community members continue to be at work just because they're not in Northwest for a little while and end up back in Northwest. It is ultimately disrespectful, ultimately. And it does send the signal that you're not trustworthy, it sends the signal that you are not here to serve and protect. The mental well-being of this community doesn't matter. The emotional well-being of this community doesn't matter. I stood out there until 1 o'clock in the morning when the tape was pulled down. People were in the park without food and water, and there was a lady who got out the car and her car was left running the entire time. She even asked officers if they could just turn off her car. It ran from 8 p.m. till after 1 o'clock with the door wide open. Complete disregard of the people in that park. They were armed, at least 26 officers that lined up and intimidated unarmed people, mostly women and children. Outrageous. Outrageous. It's a slap in the face. What happens next? From what I've seen, what the Oversight Commission is intended for, I do think that they should be granted more power, but I can't say for sure that I know what that is. So I'm not gonna dig too deep. Hopefully we'll be able to have another conversation and, spend some time thinking, talking, and further understanding what's expected. But also using PUSD isn't a good example, because I think they're pretty shameful too. That's as diplomatic as I can be with that answer.
All right, Lisa, what else? What's up next?
I want to ask if Brandon had any thoughts on that second. And should the new Community Police Oversight Board have the power to fire officers and control their budget? Like the same thing happened with
My
the-
answer is, to that extent, I don't think that they should have the power to fire anyone, and I don't think that they should have the power to control budget. I think they should have the power to look at records and look at certain things that is happening, and they should have the power to hold city officials and people who are in those powers accountable to what they should and shouldn't do. I think that that's the teeth behind it, because we have to, just like subpoena power, we have to have subpoena power to get what we want to see and see those things. And so when it comes to the police oversight, we have to make sure it's done right and done well the first time, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel later on. And what we also have to make sure is that this is just not another commission that we have. So I sit on the commission. And so we have to make sure that this is just not another commission that just makes recommendations to the city that doesn't have any power. And that's what we have to continue to go for. And for everybody that's on this call, this is what we have to continue to push. You have to continue to email your council member and your mayor. We have a new mayor. You have to, even if you like him or you don't like him, he's still your mayor. So email your mayor, tell him what you want to see. Not only go to city council, but you have to go to these public safety meetings as well to make sure that what our city is putting in place for our community is what we want. And Pasadena is good for asking you what you want and giving you the opposite of what you want. So we have to start holding them accountable so that we can see what the community really wants and needs for where we live at.
Yeah,
Can I jump in real quick, just real briefly, because I know we're running out of time, but this is something very important for everybody, is that the Oversight Commission, the applications are out there. Whether or not you may not feel comfortable about applying for the commission, I bet you should push it to a friend. You should push it out into the community that, okay, you say, oh no, I might not get it. I might not get in this time, but that's not what it is. Send it to your council member and apply to be on the Oversight Commission. It's not some secret society. The application is out there. We're gonna push out slides that will allow people to know how to apply, and and the time is winding down, because we'll look up, and this is how systematic control gets us. and we'll see an oversight commission with people that we don't know, people that we've never heard of, because they all applied. And we have to push out that everybody has the right to apply, whether it's a community organization that you go under, or you go directly to your council member and say, I should be on that commission for my side of town. And as many applications that is pushed out there, because as I believe the council member Steve Madison said at Public Safety, he already has 12 applications for his area. 12 applications. And his area, how does that affect them? But people in his area feel that they want to have a voice, which they should have a voice, but we need to make sure that you guys are, we're all applying, and we're always also pushing it out to anybody we know that should be there. That was just a commercial break. The slides will be coming soon.
Right, and I see it, the link in the chat. So we have just a few more minutes before we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you, all of you who kind of came back and found a way to get back to us.
There is a question from Eduardo that Lisa should say, because it's really good.
Well, I want, before she hits that one, I want to bring up another quick point. Mine is a bit tattered, but what this is the Peace Officer Bill of Rights. It is probably some of the most boring reading you'll ever read, but to better understand what procedures are and why we are often asking questions of why can't this be public or why isn't that public, this is what you need to read to better understand. So let's hit that, and it's called the Peace Officer Bill of Rights. Let's hit the next question, Lisa.
It's from Eduardo Torres. And Eduardo, if you're hearing this, our prayers and condolences to your family. And I will also invite you to unmute if you'd like after I read the question, if you'd like to say any words. You stated here, my nephew Mario was one child that was shot on the 14th. Tomorrow there will be a meeting in my district similar to this. What concerns should I voice in regard to increased safety? And this can go to Brandon or Spree.
Does Mario want to say anything?
Eduardo.
Oh,
hey guys, it's Eduardo.
oh, sorry.
I just want to say thank you to the community and all the people that have shown a lot of support to our family. It's been very difficult, frustrating, and scary at the same time. So we're just kind of looking for ideas or topics that I should bring up in a similar meeting that we're going to have tomorrow. So this whole meeting has been very helpful, and I just wanted to ask a question in regards to what can I ask, what can I do to kind of prevent this from happening to another family.
Thank you, Eduardo. And I'm deeply sorry that this has happened to you and your family. First thing is, it's a beautiful thing that you're here and you are speaking up for your nephew, because that's how we continue to fight. And so thank you for being here, and thank you for voicing what you have to say. When it comes to trying to increase safety in our parks, that's a conversation that we've been trying to have for a long time. And it's not an answer that anybody has. It's not something that anybody has the answer to. Only thing that we can do is actually make suggestions. And so, I go back to programming, specialized programming for our young kids, specialized programming for our young adults, things that, they are constantly doing that is supervised. Not only that, but it's okay to have officers walking the park and being involved and showing effort in doing that as well. And so it's okay for an officer, to just walk. How about, you know, one of the suggestions that I would give is to have officers pull over and walk the park instead of locking up the park and putting gates around the park. How about you get out your car and have conversations with these young people? How about you get out your cars and see how these human beings who houses are being shot up, and kids are being shot up? How about you get out your cars and see how they're doing and walk the block? We have officers who are on bikes in Pasadena. How about we start putting some of these bike patrol officers at some of these parks, to have these conversations with our young people? And so these are some of the suggestions that I would have, Eduardo, because I mean, seeing the gates around our park it's not helping us at all. You putting up a gate is not helping your community. It's just making your community mad, because that's one less thing that they're able to be involved in or get involved in. And so, you know, suggestions for safety is, I would say, you know, have bike patrol, have police officers walk, and have those conversations with them. But then, Eduardo, I will also commend and push you to keep letting your voice be heard. You know, after the meeting on tomorrow or the next day, you keep pushing, because it's your voice that's going to push Mario's voice out there. And so once again, man, I commend you, and I'm deeply sorry for what has happened to you and your family.
Thank you, Brandon, for the comments.
And Eduardo, again, my prayers are with you and your family and your nephew, and thank you for joining us tonight. We have just a couple more minutes. I think we can get one more question in, Lisa, and then we'll get ready to get out of here.
Right. Last one. It's a long one. If you were able to have audience with every pastor, clergy member in this community, Black, white, Asian American, Latinx, Armenian, Jewish, Muslim, etc., what would you ask of them that would be helpful to address interpersonal and systemic racism in this community, which underlie most, if not all, of our community societal ills, including issues with policing and public safety? What are practical things they can do both inside and outside of their churches, congregations, temples, mosques?
Ooh, that's a whole lot. Okay.
Pastor Myra.
Spree, you want to go first, or you want me?
Don't do this to me, Brandon. Don't do this to me.
And I know a whole lot to unpack, but we want to make sure, I know we were disrupted.
Yeah.
So we want to honor the time. Like, we're supposed to be done in 1 minute. If folks would allow us just a little bit more time, if you got to go, we certainly understand. But I do want to let you guys get to that question, and then we'll close out.
Amongst the first two, and I'm going to go back to this Anthony McLean thing. Amongst the first people that showed up the following day, Pastor Myra was here, Pastor Eric Johnson, Pastor David from Pasadena Foursquare, Pastor Kerwin committed to being here every day into the cold with Brandon. Well, I guess it wasn't really cold because it was summer, but well into the darkness, because he was literally here till 11 o'clock. And in his absence, he'd requested that other churches sign up to fill in the blanks. And some of those fell through the cracks, but there were several that continued to show up, and even Pasadena Foursquare continuing to show up to help community members maintain the Living Memorial Succulent Garden for Anthony McLean. But what, in audience with various clergy as a community member, is kind of the same. I'd ask to step outside of what they believe their ministry is and commit to people and do the Lord's work. I can't say that I know a lot in, Judaism or, Buddhist doctrine or anything of the sort. I was raised in a Christian family with Christian values, and we don't get to pick and choose serving people, because Jesus didn't pick and choose serving people. And if that's what you're doing and being Christ-like, then, really show up and serve the people and find ways to meet the needs. Pastor Kerwin often says, if there's a need, then we'll find a way to fill it. And he did his due diligence in starting that. And again, some fell through the cracks and some continue to show up. I think that creating like the new norms for what clergy does, like step away from the tradition of, it's not just Bible study and choir rehearsal. Like there's so much more than an usher board meeting. Like we really need to have clergy serving the communities. It made a difference for the pastors that showed up here to show love to this community and support this community when the city wasn't, and when PPD wasn't. Like it makes a difference.
Okay.
I'm going to make my answer very quick.
Okay, Brandon.
So I'll say this. I think Pastor Myra, Pastor Kerwin, you guys did a wonderful job in doing what we did out there. I think it needs to happen. And one thing that we have to understand as the church is that we're not called to the four walls of the church. We're called to the people who are not in our buildings. And so we have to do more work outside of our buildings to make sure our communities are safe. That's number one. Number two, what each and every pastor can do to help tackle the voice and the face of racism is start having these conversations with your local bodies. Start inviting people that look like me into your churches so that we can have conversations with people that don't look like me. And that's how we tackle this. That's how we tackle racism. Because let me tell you, there's also racism in our churches as well. Just because they don't have a mic does not mean it's not happening. And so there are racist people that are sitting in our pews as well. And so we need to have these conversations with these people and have these conversations where you're inviting community people into your local bodies to talk about systemic racism that we continue to see. And so, yeah, that's my short answer. And I'm gonna be quiet now, James.
All right, thank you, Brandon, Spree. 8:33, and again, I said we were going to honor time tonight. Again, all of you who made it over from the other situation, which I still don't completely understand. But again, thank you for being here. Flo, announcements, anything you want to touch on before we go ahead and get out of here tonight?
In 2 weeks, we will have Chief Perez and our city manager in the hot seats, and all of the questions and all of the issues kind of put them on their forehead, and hopefully they got some good answers for us. But what we're asking in these next 2 weeks is just to email us at the NAACP, just email us at POP as well, the questions, just some random question or some question you just wanted to ask. We want to be able to deliver it to them. That not all questions will get said, but we're going to go for it. And I think that we want to have this as an ongoing dialogue. We're asking for stakeholders to stay at the table at La Pintoresca Park, at Jackie Robinson, at Villa, and at Central, so that we can continue these conversations in different spaces with PPD and the city, and those stakeholders that are interested to stay at the table, that you can really be the voices and go past Brandon and Spree that was here tonight, and really have these tough questions and really work through some stuff. So we're not going to stop when we get past to them, but we're going to keep this going on as the pandemic's going to make us, and these foolish white supremacists or whatever the heck it was tonight, it's not going to stop community. We're just going to figure it out some other way. But thank you for your time, and please Zoom in, chat, do whatever in 2 weeks' time, because we want to make those two uncomfortable. That's what we want to do. We want to make them uncomfortable and with some challenging questions. So fire away. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, guys. Thank you. Make sure you do what Flo said. And but no, I
And
appreciate
also
everyone.
tomorrow, if for those that can, let's go and support Eduardo. I mean, it's my district, so I'm going to be there anyway. But to support Eduardo in that space, and let's listen to what Miss new District 5 council member has to say.
Absolutely, and then I'll live stream that as well on the Conversation Live. So again, thank you folks for being here with us tonight, this evening, and enjoy the rest of your week. Be careful out there. Make sure you wear a mask. All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next installment of this series. All right. Have a good night, all.